Gujarati is known for his solid positional play. Well, today we are going to look at one of his excellent attacking games. And in fact, he's been playing a few of them recently. He played an amazing attacking game against Etienne Bakro at the World Cup. And now this one. And it starts to feel that Vidit is exploring more to his style. He's trying more different ways of playing, taking more chances, sort of rolling the dice and making his opponents sometimes think more, letting the position spin out of control. Let's have a look at this game against Vincent Keymer from the Tata Steel Chess India. This was round number 8. Vidit had just beaten Pragnananda in the previous round and was in full flow here. So d4 by Vidit, knight f6, c4, e6, knight to c3. Vincent goes for bishop b4. Vidit goes e3, castles, bishop d3, d5, knight f3, pawn takes pawn, bishop takes, c5, castles, cd, ed. And this is very well known theory. In fact, let me make a couple of more moves. b6, bishop g5, and bishop b7. This is the way in which Anatoly Karpov used to play with the black pieces. He would basically say, I'm going to take here, then put his knight on d7, rook c8, and played against the pawns of white. White, on the other hand, says I have more space because of the isolated pawn, and also I have the bishop pair. Queen e2 was played by Vidit here. There are many ways to play in this position. There's rook e1, there's rook c1, many moves. But he goes queen e2 and now takes. And here I was expecting knight bd7, which is sort of the main move, and we have many games here. But he went knight c6, and this has been played only 12 times before. Vidit now quickly played his knight to e5. Good move, because he's putting pressure in the center, and if you take d5, this is already a losing position. It's just too much of an attack. But Vincent was well prepared, and he went knight e7, which is an interesting move. First thing which you have to understand here is that if you take on f6, then after g takes f6, black is completely fine. He's going to kick this knight off, and the knight is coming to g6. Black king is very safe. But Vidit goes rook d1. And here's my first question to you. What would you play here as black to move? Well, Vincent played the very standard looking move rook c8, which was perhaps not the best. A very good idea here was knight to e4. And this is a tricky move because now you're hitting the bishop and the pawn. And if you were to take bishop takes knight, then after queen e7, black has solved all the opening problems. In fact, for Vidit here, it's very tricky how to go ahead. The best move for him is the very surprising, and in fact, you can think about it. What should white do here? White to play. Yes, the move is d5. Crazy move, leads to incomprehensible complications. Okay, knight c4, knight c3 doesn't work because of queen g4. There's just too much of pressure everywhere. Here, so even if you take the rook, now there's bishop f6, and it's just a huge attack.
Made with 100% wild Alaskan pollock and the new black pepper cheese sauce. Now that's a great catch.
So if you go knight g5, I take here, attack your queen, bishop d5. Well, if you move your queen away somewhere, queen c8, then after e takes f7, king h8, this is already a huge attack now with rook d4. the rook swinging over, and this is dangerous. Something like bishop d5, check, knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes, knight takes, rook takes, queen e6, and eventually the position is around equal. So this would have been knight e4, a good move for black, but Vincent went rook c8. And now Vidit could have actually taken on f6, gf6, and now gone for this interesting sacrifice with knight takes f7, hitting the queen. So you must take, rook takes f7, and now bishop e6, and white is doing quite well here. Position is complex. After bishop d5, bishop f7, you can take with the king, and complicated is the word. But Vidit goes rook d3, and this time Vincent doesn't miss his opportunity. He quickly jumps with his knight to e4. But the good thing for Vidit is that now his c3 pawn is defended, so he doesn't have to worry too much about his pawn there. So he saves his bishop. Black goes for the move queen c7. f6 was not possible because bishop e6 hangs. This is a big problem in the position. So always this knight is very stable and it keeps defending this bishop. g5 is definitely a move that no human wants to play, but it's a very interesting move, mainly because this square is taken away by the knight, so you can't attack easily. And after bishop g3, rook takes, knight takes, bishop a6. This is a complex position, and black is okay. So queen c7 was played. Rook h3 by Vidit. And now knight g6 would have been a nice move by Vincent. Takes, h takes, bishop d3, knight takes c3, queen g4, knight d5. Black is okay here. He's not going to get mated. His king is running away. So maybe Vincent should have done that, but instead he went knight f5. And now Vidit played his bishop back to d3, attacking the knight. The knight took here, and now the queen entered the attack with queen h5. The position can get very complex now if black had gone f6. In fact, white has to be very resourceful with ideas like bishop g5 or bishop takes f6 to put pressure on h7 with the rook and the queen. But instead, I think Vincent played the best move, which is h6, but it put a lot of pressure on him. And Vidit now found a very, very tricky idea. He went bishop f6, and he tells Vincent, if you want to take that bishop, take it. I am coming at your king. So very, very innovative play by Vidit. Not really the way he usually plays chess. It's not at all accurate, I would say. If you put this in an engine, it shows slight advantage to black. But then in a blitz game, when you are attacking in such a way against opponent's king, the opponent is bound to get worried. So here's my question to you. What would you play here as black to play? So there are many threats. In fact, the main threat is to take on g7, then to take on f5, and then to checkmate the opponent. That is a big threat. So the best move here is knight d5. And the point is, if you play bishop g7, which is the idea, black has this very tricky move, knight f4. And after this, the game is over. Black wins because I'm taking this with a check, and then the attack falls apart. So here after knight d5, in fact, it's very tricky now how to continue. And the right move is knight g4. Because if you play knight f4 now, then I have knight h6 check. Very interesting move. If you play g takes h6, there are many ways to win, but I think the most beautiful way is queen g5 check. And you can't take the queen, it's rook h8 mate. And otherwise, if you go here, I can play rook h6 and game is over. So knight g4, you can't go knight f4 because of this sack And even if you take knight takes here, there are many ways. Actually, I was thinking, no, there are not many ways. There is only one way, which is queen g5 threatening a mate. And even if you take this with a check, I can just take back and there's no way to stop mate here. So the best defense now is queen f4, bishop g7, king g7, bishop f5, e f5, knight at 6, rook c1, knight f5. It's just a computer variation to show that the game would be around equal here. So this would have been a great defense, but instead Vincent goes bishop e4. Mind you, g takes f6 does not work because of bishop f5 followed by queen h6, game over. So he played bishop e4. And now Vidit played the only move that is possible in this position to keep his attack going, which is white to play. Yes, bishop g7. Excellent move. Vincent should have played king g7 here. It was a must. Because once he plays this, there is check. King h7. Bishop e4, knight e4, queen e4. The position is still very complicated. It could be anyone's game. But instead of taking on g7, which looks the most natural move, Vincent, oh, by the way, knight g7 loses to queen h6. Vincent went bishop d3. And this was a blunder. What should white play here? Yeah, taking on f8 does not make sense because after knight e2 check, king h1, knight f4, queen g4 check, king f8, queen. If I take queen takes f4, there's already bishop f1. And instead, if you play knight takes d3, this is fine for black, this position. You know, black is doing very well. So the right move here, and one that Vidit found, bishop h6. And now there's just no way to defend yourself because there are many threats. The simplest one is queen g5 check. He played bishop e2, but then just check. And he resigned the game here because king h7, there's bishop f8, and it's a mate. So a very, how do I put it? Very interesting and exciting game played by Vidit. He managed to beat Vincent in just 23